everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast. It is myself and the Philly sports guy. How's it going, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing a lot better than those Viking fans are right at the moment. Um,
Man,
it's
what an
like
ugly game.
Dustin is not ducking the show. He'll be on shortly. I got to imagine he's going to have probably more to say than I will. Other than I didn't. I mean, is it just me, or is the NFL? Really got to start figuring out some of the things that people are doing now. That's like that call in the beginning of the game. I feel like that would have tied the score up 10-10. You know
Yep.
what I mean? That
Yep.
and could have quite literally added now. Okay, this is now the momentum has shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, such a mess. Such a mess. Like,
How that
how
was,
in any world is that a forward pass?
yeah, like how that was a complete pass and not a fumble is ridiculous. I understand he turned his hand, but that's it. Like, there was no, like, it's not like it traveled very far, right? Like, he turned his hand, it went about 2 yards.
Not even.
Yeah, right. Like, I
No,
mean,
it looked like yeah, so he turned his hand because that's the way like he was trying to make it look like something because it was coming out anyways.
yeah,
That's what was happening.
exactly. Like, I hate that call. I hate what it did to that game. I mean, it made that game just
Unwatchable afterwards.
it really
Unwatchable.
was. It really was. Like, it was really terrible. Do I think the Rams probably still won? Sure, because the offensive line of Minnesota like just didn't get off the airplane. But I mean, what, Darnold got sacked 9 times, which is crazy. At the same time, the entire game would have just felt different if that was called correctly. And yeah, so Stat Guy is on a phone call. He will be here. He's not ducking us completely. That being said, I'm still going to laugh at him for kind of ducking the beginning of the show. But I figure let's save the Viking end of it till he gets here. I'm curious if there's some truth to this fan getting banned for life. Eagles fan that was berating this, Packers fan. She was just there enjoying the game, and he was going at her. It sounds like they're going to send her a bunch of Green Bay apparel, and then kick that fan out, ban him for life. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Nice.
And I think deserved. You know
No
what? Like
question.
listen, like I understand. What bothers me about the video that I watched
Yep.
is that nobody else stepped in. Like
Right.
you had the one Green Bay guy who was there with his fiance or whatever. And it
Yep.
seems to me like how I heard all this, I don't know if that guy was the fiance. Like
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't.
that there's
I don't know.
there it's a little weird there. Like I think that it was maybe her brother or a guy friend that
Right.
she was there with, not the guy who got angry on the Twitter post or the X post
Yeah.
originally. That being said, anybody else around there. Listen, I understand we're Eagles fans, and I understand that we could be passionate. But when somebody deliberately starts bullying somebody else,
Exactly.
somebody in that neighborhood should have stepped up and stepped in. Been like, yo, dude, you're out of line. Knock it off and watch the game. Because
Yeah.
I would have done that. I absolutely would have done that and have done that. You know,
No,
you,
I
you
mean, so that's the thing, right? Is it's just like, look, I'm good with passionate, going at each other for your teams, right? But if you're just name calling and going at her, like, what are we doing?
Right. Like, well, and then to like try to double down when the guy steps up for her. You know what I mean? First off, I understand the moment that you use that word, now you have to defend it because that's what you got to do because you were the asshole that had to use that word in the first place. You
Yeah,
know, so and if you like, listen, I tell everybody all the time, you know, if you don't engage an asshole, you don't have to become one. And this guy, I tell you, the Packers fan kind of was as right as could be. The girl was just like, yeah, what the frig ever. It's just Philadelphia, puts
yep,
it all into perspective. You know what I mean? And it's just like what that video needed to show was another Eagles fan coming to the defense of the Packers fan.
Yes.
What needed to have happen there, and
100%.
that would have stopped that video from going out, or would have made that guy look like a friggin' hero in the process
Yes.
of this, because there is no room for stupid shit like this. And unfortunately, I know we're not supposed to curse anymore,
Yeah.
but this deserves being cursed about. I do everything I can to show Philadelphia in a much better light. And with that little bit right there, takes all the 3 years of work that I do and throw it out the friggin' window.
No question.
Because
well, the thing that's funny is if you would have had another fan come in and do exactly that, it would have not only made that guy look like a hero, but it would have just amplified the fact that that dude is a douche and an outlier.
Right. Correct. So the fact that nobody came at all, and there's people around in the video looking and going, like you could tell, like people are trying to get out of the way of this picture because they don't want to be included.
Yeah.
Which is, pathetic across the board. So yes, this guy should be banned for life.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the fact that the internet has kind of come together on this. You know what I mean? That this is unacceptable behavior across the board. But it's like I said, from somebody who actually puts in the work to make Philly look better in general, I feel like I deserve to be pissed off. I was so pissed off I didn't want to make a video about it, because I think that the video would come across too harsh. It's like, because I feel very passionate about this. It's one thing to be at a game. It's one thing to root on your people. And listen, we're at a football game. An F-bomb's going to get dropped sometimes. You're going to say something that's going to come across a little sensitive to children under 18. You know what I mean? That's going to happen sometimes. I get it. But you can't go about your day with the ability to, I'm First Amendment rights. My First Amendment tells, all he should have done, I would have called security right there, told exactly what he said, show him the video, and that guy would have been kicked out right then and there. He didn't deserve to have to sit there the rest of that game with that guy behind him.
Yeah.
And that was despicable to the highest degree. To the highest degree. And like I said, I'm so angry about it because like I said, she didn't deserve it. She's a Packers fan. You know what I mean? That nobody said anything to you. Nobody turned to you like the Mets fan who got his phone thrown on the field at the Phillies game. You know what I mean? She didn't go up and put her phone in your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was just there clapping. All right, we didn't get in. All right, let's go. And he's like, oh yeah, there you go, you stupid, or ugly, and I mean, just and like, shut up, shut the frig up. And I hope it affects your business. I hope it affects the way that people look at you in life, because you deserve it now. You deserve it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, they had a clear shot at him. It's not like it was a fuzzy image. Like, exactly who dude is. So, yeah, no, it's it's disappointing. I mean, again, like, I'm about the shit talk, right? Like, if I'm at the game, there's an opposing fan, like, we're gonna talk. Like, it's gonna be a thing. But I'm not gonna talk about you. I'm gonna talk about your team.
Right. Exactly. You know what? It's like I said, the Eagles are not my mother. I don't have to defend their honor.
Exactly.
They make millions of dollars. I don't. I spend what seems like millions of dollars to be a part of this lifestyle. You know what I mean?
And they make millions of dollars even when they're bad.
Exactly.
And we have a stat guy in the house. Sup, buddy?
Oh, once we get done talking about that, we'll talk about that next.
Yep. Like I'm not, just to let the viewers know, I'm not dodging the show. I just had a long conference call for work, and I just sold a company where I get enough commission that's going to pay for basically 3 months of work.
Sweet.
So I
Very good.
get 10% of I get
He's no longer a
because
Viking.
he's got to pay for our food and stuff like that when we come up there in April. So
Exactly.
I made 10% commission on all the sales I make, so the order was pushing 6 figures. So I'll
Sweet.
get 10% of that, which is enough basically for 3 months of work on my end.
Hey, way to get a win off the heels of defeat.
Hey, some of it's out in your area too, Bo. So
Oh yeah, you gonna come visit?
well, it's a company based out of Wisconsin, but they have like 180 locations like throughout the country.
Okay.
And
yeah, they
one
need
of
a
the,
place to send the cheese.
and well, it's a what like the like floor coating is, like concrete floor coating.
Yeah, of course.
They manufacture like a lot of chemicals for like a lot of the concrete floor
Oh,
coating
okay.
companies in the country, and one of their big distributors is out in Washington.
Oh
So
my
that
God.
was
okay.
part
You're
of the
bringing
order.
back bad memories. That triggered a PTSD because I did that type of work. Oh my Lord, that's like you're like I'm like the moment you said that I'm like, oh my God, the concrete specialist.
Hey, if they want to pay me, I'll take their money.
Yep.
Now, and trust me, guys. I know. I just Dustin, you know exactly what it is we're talking about. We're talking about the guy who got banned for life out of that stadium. Interestingly enough, they're talking about building a new stadium, and I don't know if those bans carry forward that he's banned from the Eagles for life. But I mean, ultimately, this will be the next silver linings playbook, movie,
Yeah.
at some
Well,
point.
I mean, in a ban like that, let's be honest, it's hard to enforce, right? Like he could buy
Yeah.
someone else's ticket, and I'm
Well,
sure.
no, it's the facial recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, this is why they don't let and see that's part of the problem because now he'll become a face painter.
You're right. Probably.
And then that's when they'll start stopping face paint because ultimately that's the problem I run into. But
Sure.
they know where I'm at. They know where to find me because I'm right up close and personal. I want to be right up there. I want to be with the fans. Like I said, I've stepped in the middle a few times to save opposing fans. Like, all right, you're not going to do nothing with me, and if you are going to do something with me, then all of a sudden everybody else is going to be against you.
Yeah.
So that's how that works. So I do get a little bit of carte blanche when it comes to stuff like this. But that's because everybody else is already tired of hearing it. It's like you curse once, you curse twice at really big moments. I understand.
Sure.
But if it's like everything that you say that comes out of your mouth has got to be disrespectful, at that point, I'm going to turn around because there's kids around and there's always kids around.
No, of course.
And then when somebody says something like that and says, "Oh, shut up, face paint," I'll turn around. Then everybody else is going to be, no.
Yeah.
You ain't telling this guy to shut up. Obviously, because we've already dealt with it for so long. I'm not doing it at the first curse. I'm doing it at the 18th curse. You know what I mean? Because I don't want you to get to 20 because it's undeserving of everybody else around you. And just because you're an Eagles fan amongst other Eagles fans doesn't mean that gives you carte blanche.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. That's where that guy felt entitled. But he's just a miserable POS. He's
No
a
question.
miserable POS, and he deserves what he got. And like I said, I hope it affects his business and the way people deal with him in just normal life.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no reason for it ever. I mean, even if they were running their mouth back at you, all you got to be is like, look at the scoreboard.
Look at the scoreboard. We're winning. No,
So I don't know. It's
So and then you got that, Steve. So Steve, post that one up.
Yeah.
This is the consequence, or this is what happens when you have behavior like you do before, where it's funny. It's funny for a 6-year-old to give a middle finger. It's funny. It's not funny when you're over 10 or 11. And, it's like, oh, and you want to laugh. You want to, but that's where the disrespect starts. At 10 years old, you are starting to make decisions that you have to have consequences for.
Yeah.
And, It's like,
Parents
when
need to be there.
everybody else is doing it, they're okay to do it too because it becomes a learned behavior. And that's
Exactly.
a little bit part of the issue. This is a little bit of part of the issue. Well, that's probably why I have so many parents that follow me because their kid follows me because they know I stand for this stuff. There is no room for bullying anywhere. And listen, when you want to try to bully me, I'm a better bully. I know how to bully back and much
Yep.
better than anybody else. Trust me, I've been on both sides of the equation. I know exactly what it does, how it does it. I talk to schools about this. I go out of my way to try to push how bullying is bad in general for a society. And this is part of what happens. At football games, you have assholes like this guy thinking he can get away with that. Well, I'm glad he's not getting away with it. I'm glad what's happened is what's happened. And I'm sorry. Like I said, took 3 years of the work that I just did of trying to get opposing fans who have had bad instances to start to become understanding of what a typical Philly fan is rather than the outliers who make the biggest mistakes.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Bless you.
Like what happened to my kid this past summer.
Well,
What's
I don't
that?
know what happened with your
So when I took my kid to the Brewer game this summer when the Yankees were at Milwaukee, he's a big Aaron Judge fan, which is the main reason why we went, just because the Yankees don't always go to Milwaukee. And Aaron Judge had I think 2 home runs and 7 RBIs in the game or whatever. And just because my son was wearing his Aaron Judge jersey, 3 Brewer fans decided to dump beer on my 10-year-old son. Another Brewers fan grabbed him behind the neck and ripped his Aaron Judge shirt behind him, so he's got a big rip in his Aaron Judge shirt now.
Why didn't you call the cops there?
Because
that's assault on a child.
Because I actually grabbed the guy by the neck and pushed him down 3 rows of bleachers, and then security got involved anyways, and they were going to take me out of the game, but then I had a bunch of other Brewer fans sitting next to me that basically said I was basically defending my kid and that this guy did what he did. So then the Brewers basically told me that they can't replace the Aaron Judge shirt, obviously, but they said that they can give my kid pretty much anything from the pro shop that he wants if he wants anything, which he didn't really care about the Milwaukee stuff, and he ended up getting a signed baseball by Aaron Judge because Aaron Judge was made aware of it after the game.
Oh, I mean, that's cool.
It's just things like that. It doesn't matter, if you're not a fan of the stadium that you're at, you still have to have some decency because it's one thing if you're an adult or whatever, but when you have a 10, 11-year-old kid that is literally at your game because one of his favorite players is maybe at the stadium for the first time ever. Now, with the new baseball rules, it'll be every other year that Aaron Judge is there, but that was the first time the Yankees were at Miller Park in 5 years. Last time my son would have saw him play, he would have been 5 years old. He wouldn't remember much. So it's the first time that he actually got to see Aaron Judge in person, then you just have to make his experience complete shit because you're a douchebag.
So, and that's part of the problem. That is part of because this becomes learned behavior to children, and then those children think it's okay. Then they don't know what did they do wrong. So, I'm glad that this guy got banned for life. So, that's all we'll say about that. I think I went off on enough of a rant there. Like I said, it takes away all the work that I do. It actually doesn't take it away. It actually makes me double down on it. I definitely have to double down on it because now that's going to get thrown up. That's going to get brought back up in my face all the time. Santa Claus, I wasn't born. I am old, and I wasn't born when we threw snowballs at Santa. I was at the game that they threw batteries at Jimmy Johnson. I was there for that one. But I can only look in the mirror and say, yes, I'm going to do this today to try to show difference. Listen, you think it was fun walking around the streets of Houston with everybody putting a camera up in my face when they won the World Series and they're celebrating around me and I'm in face paint and I don't get to just snap my fingers and wash it all off. It's like I got to be there, and I'm telling everybody congratulations and staying safe. And they're like, "Oh, thanks." You know what I mean? They don't even know what to say because I'm not what they suspect a Philly fan is. And it's hard work to do that. It's not easy. Hey, listen, and this week is, I tell you, the playoffs make things a lot tougher. Anybody who thinks that this job, what I do, is easy, has got a whole wrong perspective on stuff. I get mobbed by people sometimes, and where like this last game, I was like, whoa, everybody back, take 2 steps back. I don't have to take a picture with anybody. You know what I mean? So I'm going to take pictures with everybody, but you can't just accost me. You don't just come up and stick stuff in my face and do whatever. I am a human being too. So, but it happens like that sometimes. It's whatever, and I take it. I signed up for this. It's part of my job. It's almost got to be in the job description. But just because you are an Eagles fan doesn't make you entitled to get a picture with me. It doesn't mean I have to do anything for you.
Exactly.
And that is the hardest thing to try to show to somebody. So when you finally do, like, whoa, I hate it. I'll be honest. I hate it when people put their arm around me like they've been friends with me for years. Because then they want to put up like deuces or whatever. And then I got like this hand in my, like, yo, dude, get your hand out of my face. Like, you don't know me, and I don't know you. I barely let people like that who know me touch my face, let alone that. But picture's done. All right, gone. Let's go. Let's moving on. You know what I mean? It's not easy what I do, but I do it because I want to show better. I want to do better. And I can teach by example. And that took a lot of that away.
And Steve-O right here. I mean, exactly. Like, keep it to the team. Be like, hey, your team played like trash, right? Don't go after the people. Like, you're just a fan of the team. I mean, so that's where this learned behavior is complete bullshit. It's basically you don't have anything. You ran out of material to go after the team, so now you're going after the person, which is idiotic. So I'm with you. Like, I hope that this absolutely tanks everything that guy's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he deserves it.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, like I said, I think we've spent enough time on this. You know what I mean? It's like, this is, that's why like I said, I get so passionate about this specific. That's why I couldn't make this video. Like, I know that it would be like a 5-minute rant. And I'm not in face paint, so it doesn't matter as much because that's the perception that, hey, the Philly sports guy is this guy and Jamie's a different guy, and we don't really care what Jamie's got to say. We want to hear it from the Philly sports guy. So, but I can't do that rant. I can't have that conversation the way I want to in Philly sports guy,
no, of course.
because that's going to be very like R17 rated.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like it's that's not for kids.
It's hard to have that conversation without dropping F-bombs in it.
Right. Correct.
Like,
it was hard now.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And the thing is that truth of the matter is that I'm smarter than that anyways. I don't need to curse. When you are strong enough in your conviction, the curse is supposed to be used as an adjective to express. It's not meant to be used as the word that hits. So that's the problem. People don't know how to curse. They just curse to curse. And the moment that you curse, everything elevates. And when you go into the top 5, because there's top 5 words. They used to be 7. A couple of those words are no longer in that 7 anymore. You know what I mean? But there's a top 5.
Yeah, now they get away with it on network TV, so those don't count anymore.
Yeah, it's like, it's funny when the word cocksucker seems to be a good one. You know what I mean? Like, that's actually a nice thing to say.
Right.
But that those are the reasons. Like when you say those words, immediately everybody gets elevated. Everybody gets either a touch nervous. They start to wonder what's about to happen. Oh, I got to get my phone out because now that's what people do. They're like, I'm going to just start recording just in case somebody gets offended about the fact that that guy used one of those 5 words. And ultimately they are, like I said, they're in the wrong. I'm glad that the Eagles stepped up the way they did, and I suspect it's going to be, like I said, they're going to get some Packers gear. The Eagles are going to try to make this go away, but this is going to stay in the media for a little while. It's just going to.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's why I didn't. It's why I didn't include the video. Like, this guy doesn't need any more press in that way. I just liked the Eagles' response, which is why we're talking about it today. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gave it airtime at all, because the hell with that guy. But because of the way that the Eagles organization responded, that's why I wanted to touch on it on the show today.
Now that I'm here, does anyone want to crucify me for the non-football game that happened last night?
I feel like you could have played better quarterback yesterday.
At times I would agree, but that offensive line last night was complete freaking trash.
There's no
what caused that? Why?
So
2 weeks in a row.
But they
weren't good against the Lions either.
That's the thing. Like, Christian Darrisaw, who's like one of the top 2 or 3 left tackles in the NFL, got injured against the Rams in week 8. He ended up tearing his ACL. Prior to his injury, Minnesota had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in terms of pass protection. So even the first 3-4 games after Darrisaw got hurt, their offensive line was still one of the top 5 offensive lines in pass protection because they were going against teams that didn't have a great pass rush, so Darnold could get the ball out quick. Whatever Detroit figured out against Minnesota in week 18, somebody has film on it, because the Rams did exactly what the Lions did in week 18, but they even upped it even another level, because the Lions only sacked Darnold 6 times. He was sacked 10 times last night. 3 of those sacks, I'm going to blame him for holding on to the ball way too long, but 6 or 7 of those sacks, he had no chance to do shit, because he couldn't step up in the pocket because the center was getting pushed into his lap. He couldn't go to the right or the left because the left tackle couldn't hold his spot or the right tackle couldn't hold his spot. The last 2 weeks have been an absolute train wreck, and I know I
couldn't hold any spots.
No, week 18, I blame Sam Darnold a lot more than I do last night, because there was a lot of throws that Sam Darnold missed in week 18, like 3 of them in the end zone in particular, that could have changed the outcome of that Lions game. I can't even blame Darnold really for anything besides maybe his fumble by not holding on to the football, because he didn't have time to do anything the first half.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like we said before you got on air, really soon as that phantom pass or incomplete pass call came.
How is that not grounding? How is that not grounding is my question.
Well, no. So there was a guy in the area, right?
Yeah.
Puka was there blocking. So technically it was at his feet, kind of. But the biggest thing is they had his head almost touching the ground. Like,
and he didn't even like move his arm forward. If you watch the replay in slow motion, all he did was he literally just like opened his hand just to drop the ball. It's like he's not even trying to throw it. He's literally just setting it on the ground. And the other call that I had a problem with, even though the game was over at this point, since when can we review face mask penalties? Because there was a face mask called in the 4th quarter where no flag was even on the ground, and all of a sudden the referees are talking about it, and then all of a sudden there's a 15-yard face mask penalty.
Yeah, well, and that's like when they overturn a call. They basically said they couldn't add a penalty to a play either. They're like, oh, yeah, you can't call a penalty when the play is overturned. It's like, well, I mean, if you're reviewing the play, it seems like you should be able to review the play. So, yeah, I don't know. It's
because even Troy Aikman said the same thing. Like, how can you call a face mask if you don't throw the flag? Like, every play you could theoretically not throw a flag, and then if somebody has a problem with it, you could technically huddle and be like, well, this person thinks there's a hold, so let's call a hold.
See, this is where the eye in the sky. I feel like that's probably what's been going on, the eye in the sky. And listen, I want you guys, I got to go get some water. So why don't we do the commercial real fast, and then I'll come back and we'll kind of start this, because I have some opinions a little bit, and they may or may not fall in line with stuff what you're about to say. So let's go to that commercial real quick.
Right on. Well, if you are watching Coast to Coast, you can bet right alongside us. Bet US, 125% bonus of your first 3 deposits, 10% bet guarantee. If you happen to take the Vikings last night, you'd get some of that losing effort back. And it doesn't matter what part of that game you were betting on, you took a fat L. So take advantage of that 10% bet guarantee. Use the QR code on the screen. Bet right alongside us here on Coast to Coast. And of course, if you are here in the Pacific Northwest and you're looking for a new gym to join, whether it's Bellevue, Ballard, University Village, the three different locations that you can join, free 5-day pass if you use the QR code on the screen, Pilates, boot camp, yoga, bar, and more. Find your edge at True Fusion Gym. All right.
How much? So if you want to put a reason to why they may have done this, and that this was maybe a higher up call from the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder if that's the reason why the Vikings look like they quit right after.
I 100% agree, because at that point, I think it was 24-9, which I mean, it's still a 2-possession game at that point, but it would have been 4th down and 3. Instead, it's an automatic first down, and now the ball's back in your territory because it's a 15-yard face mask that you didn't call. But then just because Matthew Stafford wants to scream and say, face mask, face mask, face mask, and now you're randomly going to just meet over by the far sideline and be like, Stafford thinks there's a face mask. Let's throw a flag and call a face mask, even though they never threw the flag. But then if you go back to week 8, Sam Darnold gets his head ripped off in the end zone on a safety, which ultimately is why Minnesota lost the games the first time to the Rams, but they don't throw a flag. They don't call face mask, and they don't even huddle to say maybe his head got turned around for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing about that is officiating this year has been god-awful anyway.
It has, yeah.
So, and it's been against everybody. So, I mean, you didn't have a call go your way. That didn't ultimately change the game.
It didn't change the game. It just changed, I think, their demeanor, where I think you could see after that call, they just quit. It's just like,
no, they were done as soon as that was an incomplete pass. Like you could
that's because that was a 14-point swing.
You could have turned that game off after 5 minutes after the start.
Yeah, because it was a 14-point swing. Because after that, Minnesota ran that back for a touchdown, so it would have been 10-10.
Correct.
Right. And then essentially they took that off the board. 5 plays later, Darnold has a strip sack, and it's the Rams taking that fumble back the other way. So ultimately, it was a 14-point swing in about 2 minutes.
I mean, you had fumbles on back-to-back plays. So, you were lucky enough to get the first one back.
No, but I'm just saying, going from a 10-10 game to all of a sudden 17-3 in a matter of 5 plays, like I think that was pretty much the dagger at that point. It's just like, well, we just had a touchdown taken away from us, and now they just had a fumble that they ran in. This sucks.
But so again, this is where I come back at that the NFL absolutely wants the Rams moving on because of everything that's going on in California in general.
Yeah, I mean, they needed one win, right? They wanted that feel-good story. I don't think there's enough that they're going to propel them forward past that, but they wanted the one win. Like, look, we moved to a new location and everything was good and they win and whatever. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's great for the script. Would have been better if it had at least been a good game, though.
I'm not taking anything away from the Rams. Like, the Rams came out fired up. Like, the way the Chargers looked against Houston, I honestly thought the Rams might look like that last night just because of everything that's been going on in Los Angeles. But they were the ones that looked like they were ready to play. Minnesota looked like the ones that were stuck in Los Angeles the last week. They were the ones that looked unprepared. They were the ones that looked like they didn't even want to be there.
Right. Well, and it's something that you had mentioned that they weren't able to practice because of the air quality in general. When you're not able to practice, you actually have you're in doing film, you're doing walkthrough, you're doing study, study. And the truth of the matter is that sometimes, specifically, really in playoffs, that's really more important.
And I think
You
that
know,
ultimately gave the Rams the big advantage because they had, an extra 3 days of film just because they couldn't do anything for 3 days until they got the Phoenix.
that's exactly correct. You know, like I think of that. You know, when the Eagles were, it was against the Vikings of all teams. When they had a Tuesday game, they played
Mhm.
a game on Tuesday, and the Vikings were stuck here over Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like the game was supposed to be on like Christmas Eve,
It's supposed to
and
be
it
Christmas Eve
snowed,
on Sunday, and then it snowed
and
Sunday into
it
Monday. And
snowed
they
on
completely traded.
Saturday. It
Yeah.
snowed on Saturday so bad that and that's when the governor at the time, not the governor, the mayor of Philadelphia, Ed Rendell, said that we're becoming a nation of wussies. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'll never forget that. And 3 days later, Minnesota smacked us so bad. And I think that we didn't make the playoffs because of it, actually,
Mm-hmm.
that it actually knocked us out of the playoffs. Um, but that was a while ago, obviously,
Yeah.
because I mean we're talking
Yep.
maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember it. I remember it clear as day that
And I think
and because they sat around for 3 days,
the
couldn't do
only
nothing over Christmas.
the only silver lining that I think Minnesota and their fans can kind of take away from last night is the last 2 games cost Sam Darnold a crap ton of money. So now you're looking at, the franchise tag would have been $41 million. Now you could essentially sign him to a 2-year deal, maybe at $30 million a year, $35 million a year, because the last 2 games cost him a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
No,
So
you can't do them with that. You got to do higher.
it's funny. I said something similar yesterday, right as the game was wrapping up, that his last 2 weeks,
Cost
him
him,
against the Lions and him, last night, probably cost him almost $20 million a year.
and I think ultimately it cost Darnold a multi-year deal also. Like, I think realistically, after the last 2 games he showed, the only contract he's gonna be able to get at this point is either a franchise tag from the Vikings or a 1-year prove-it deal from somebody else. Like, I think the last 2 games alone cost him a multi-year deal.
No, I think you got to re-sign him because of the year that he had.
Yeah, that
You're not gonna get that from your quarterback.
not from JJ, no.
No,
No,
not right now, at
No.
least. You know what I mean? So, I think you're stuck with him a little bit. At $41 million, the franchise isn't even a bad idea now.
No, that's what. But it's essentially now becomes a 1-year deal as opposed to if he would have played well against Detroit and lost. If he would have played well last night against the Rams and lost, now Minnesota would have been in a position like.
Yeah, but when you have 9 sacks, I got to imagine they got close a few other times too.
They got close to about 13, 14.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was playing with happy feet.
Yeah,
At
he
that
was,
point, you can't get comfortable ever
no.
because these guys aren't blocking for you. And that was part of the problem that happened. Like I said, it was like the air got deflated after that
Yeah.
incomplete pass. That's what I kind of felt, and I felt that moment at that moment because I was sitting there. I was sitting right next to Irving Fryer, a receiver, a #1 draft pick, sitting right next to him, and he's like, they can't make that call. That is that
They
they
can't.
he wasn't even looking at it.
No,
He
and they
wasn't even
even
looking.
Yeah, he was looking at the ground.
that's the thing. Like that, I agree. Like I think that's ultimately where the air came out of their entire team. Because if you look at it, Minnesota couldn't have gotten off to a worse start than what they got off to. Like they were down 10-0 before they could even realize what hit them, and yet after that point, the Rams' offense really didn't do much the rest of the game. They had one good drive in the second half, but they had the fumble that was returned for a touchdown, which led to 7 points. And then Darnold's interception was a short field where they only had to drive 20 yards for a field goal. So take away the first 2 drives, the Rams offense kind of went into like a 1.5 to 2 quarter struggle where Minnesota, if they got that touchdown on that fumble, it's a 10-10 game, and Minnesota played themselves back into the game despite getting off to that horrible start that they got off to.
Yeah, so this is where I had a real issue. Is in the last 7-8 minutes, there was no urgency at all. Like they had conceded the fact that they were going to lose, and rightfully so. I mean, they were far enough behind. But we watched Seattle do it to Green Bay, right, in a championship game where they were down 3 scores with 4 minutes to go. So it's not like it can't be done. But they weren't even trying. I mean, they switched over to just running plays, like they were running the clock out.
Yeah, like even in the second half, like the first drive of the second half, you're down 17-3. Like it's a very important drive. If you can make that 17-10, you're still in the game, and yet Minnesota's taking their freaking time up to the line of scrimmage. They're calling handoffs, even late in the game, fourth quarter. You're taking your time up to the line of scrimmage. You're not in hurry up mode. It's just like, are we not trying to even make this a game at this point, or what?
Yes, we are.
Nope, you're not late. You're right on time. Actually, it just started a few seconds ago, and most of the bashing's been done by Dustin himself. So I kind of felt. I'll be honest. The moment that they called that incomplete pass, I'm like, the NFL's got this one rigged, and I feel like that everybody on the Viking side knew it.
I think,
And I think that's that. Yes, they needed to have that win. They were going to make sure they got it. And anytime there was any bit of momentum, like that face mask penalty or anything like that, face mask penalty went in, and that's what got them to 24, right? Like it was actually that moved them ahead on that drive, right? It was like early in the third quarter.
yeah, because it would have been 4th and 3. The Rams would have been punting, but then they got the touchdown out of it later on the drive.
Right. So, yeah, that was what I think that was what brought him up to 24. So it was like, even then, any bit, like if there was going to be any chance that Minnesota was going to mount a comeback, the refs squashed it right away.
Oh,
and it
that's
felt that way. And it felt that way. Like I said,
was
when they came back, yeah. And it's funny how the
And they
refs
could, like-
came back and said, no, we called it a touchdown. The eye in the sky said it's incomplete pass.
And the funny thing is, if you're looking at the eye of the sky can't even see where the ball is in that situation because he's looking straight at the ground and all he sees the ball just kind of fall out of his hand.
Do not believe that. Absolutely do not believe that. I'll tell you that they have 2 cameras up there right now.
Well, yeah.
There used to be just one. Now there's 2, specifically for the playoffs. And there's one that follows the ball. I've watched it. It follows exactly where the ball is. It's got a downward view of the play at all times. That's why in that one game where finally somebody hit the wire.
Yeah.
The funny
hit
thing,
the wire.
The funny thing is, I hate to say this too, but if Sam Darnold did the same thing that Matthew Stafford did in that situation, it's either going to be called a fumble for a touchdown or it would be called intentional grounding.
So if he did it afterwards,
no, like if he did it before that,
if he started to do that afterwards, they would have had no choice but to call it.
Yeah, but I'm saying if he would have did it in that same situation,
well,
if he would have did it,
he didn't think about it like that though. He should have,
yeah,
because there might have saved him 4 sacks.
Yeah, but if he would have did it in the same situation Stafford did it, knowing that Matthew Stafford has a Super Bowl ring, knowing that Matthew Stafford has like that pedigree, I guarantee that they're letting that play stand as a touchdown or they're calling Darnold for intentional grounding. But if a guy like Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford, and some of these more veteran quarterbacks that have been there, done that before, do that kind of play, they're going to look at it and be like, no, it's incomplete. He tried to do that. But then a young quarterback who's never been in the playoffs before, it's like, nope, that's grounding. Nope, that's a fumble. Play stands.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, it's the Brady Tuck rule.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a fumble 99.9% of the time.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was a bad look for the NFL. I don't love it because this game could have been fun to watch, and it became everything but that as soon as that happened.
Yep.
So, and that ended that, so, yeah. So for the Vikings, the season is over.
And like last night, they were like, I'm not.
Season is over.
like Daniel, I would not have expected Daniel Jones or JJ McCarthy to play any better last night. But the only advantage that they would have had is at least Daniel Jones would have been able to use his legs a little bit to maybe get out of some of those blitzes. And the same thing with McCarthy, where he's a little bit more mobile in the pocket, where I think he could have at least tried to get himself out of some of those situations versus Darnold. The sacks that he took where he was running backwards and he turned a 4-yard loss into like a 9 or a 10-yard loss, as opposed to just live to see another down, take the 4-yard loss, go to 2nd and 14 now instead of 2nd and 19. Cause at 2nd and 14, you're a short 6-7 yard pass away from 3rd and manageable, as opposed to 2nd and 19, 7-8 yard pass. You're still at 3rd and 13.
I hear you.
Yeah.
At what point would you pull that string though?
You
I
know,
was-
it would have been minute 8.
I
the
was
fourth
ready.
quarter
I
there.
was ready.
I-
No, I was ready to
would've
pull
put Jones
Darnold.
in. I would have gave Jones a shot with 8
Mhm.
minutes to go because you're already conceding the loss anyway, right?
When it was 24-3 at halftime, and that first drive of the second half, and the Vikings didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I would have been okay if they would have put Nick Mullins or Daniel Jones in at that point. Because I'm like, you're down 21 right now. Like, Darnold hasn't done much. He's been getting killed. Put Jones in for a series. If he takes you down for a touchdown, that's a quick spark, and who knows what happens after that.
Yeah, I mean, to all things being equal, though, the second drive of the second half is where you guys scored your touchdown.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were going to pull the trigger there unless, you went 3 and out a couple times in a row. But certainly halfway through the fourth quarter, you might as well see if you get something
Out of anybody.
some sign of life. Because at that point, Darnold had happy feet. Like, even when the play didn't break down, he was running himself into trouble at that point. Like,
And then he
was
had that one
getting hammered
miss.
so much that at that point he was creating problems because he was back to seeing ghosts.
Yeah, he had that one miss in the third quarter of Jalen Naylor, where Jalen Naylor was streaking wide open over the middle, where if he just hits him in stride, that's a possible touchdown, and he threw it behind him. After that miss, I was okay with bringing in Nick Mullins. I would have been like, it's just not his day. It is what it is. Just Nick Mullins would probably hit that throw because he wouldn't have the happy feet at that point.
I would have been fine with it there. Like, if they would have pulled the trigger there, that could have made sense because that was a very easy throw.
And at worst, even if you don't get a touchdown on that throw puts you in field goal range, and it still gets you points, and it still keeps you in the game long enough.
It might have been 8 years ago, but if you were watching him last night, it wasn't that long ago.
He wasn't seeing ghosts last night. I think it was more of he was seeing 18 defenders as opposed to 11. It was a lot versus a little.
Oh yeah. No. Like he just wasn't seeing the field is what I mean by it.
Yeah, he was.
He was so hyper focused on the pressure that was coming in him. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been, because that offensive line was atrocious. He got sacked 9 times. I mean, obviously he was getting hammered, but he was creating some of his own problems, especially later in the game.
Yeah, later in the game, he did create some of his own problems, but you can't really blame him. I mean, you get hit that many times in the first half, you're going to have happy feet in the second half, where the first time the pocket breaks down, you're going to start panicking right away.
Yeah, no, exactly. So anyway, the Vikings lost. They were terrible.
We were terrible. We were worse than terrible.
But so moving on from that is, the Raiders come out and say they are absolutely not interested in Deion at all.
It's because he's going to the Cowboys. Like I said,
it's possible. It's possible. He does seem open to the idea.
Hey, good for him. I would love to see Deion Sanders as the coach of the Cowboys. Yeah, there's no chance he's able to turn that franchise around at all.
No, well, especially with the scenario he's walking into, right?
Yeah.
Like, he has limited cap space, not a whole lot of pieces. Do they have all their draft picks finally?
Yeah, I think they do.
Do they?
Sure.
So, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't see a path where they get better for next year. And they still haven't signed Parsons, right?
Russ and Pete. Oh, my God. That'd be a mess. But it's the Raiders, so who cares? The Raiders are going to suck until they get a better barber for their owner.
That would be amazingly horrible and hilarious to watch. Let's do this.
I don't think Tom Brady lets that happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I mean, I agree. I don't think that happens, but man, that would be hilarious.
Do you think it's going to be very soon before one of the Mannings brothers get offered a job?
Mm-mm. They have it made for what they do right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, do they even want to do it?
Because the only one that I could see doing it is Peyton, but I think Peyton would be more of an offensive coordinator as a head coach.
You think Peyton would? I would be more inclined to say Eli would be the guy that would do coaching, because
I thought so too. That's exactly what I think.
Yeah, because Peyton enjoys doing every endorsement possible.
Or have Peyton be like
never turned one down.
Or have Peyton be a GM. I can see Peyton being a GM and Eli being like an OC.
No, I think Peyton likes to be in front of the camera too much.
No, he does. But if they were to like leave like the current gigs they have now, I could see Peyton Manning being more of like a front office guy, just because he seems kind of more of like the team builder type of person versus Eli. I think would be a perfect offensive coordinator for somebody.
Bieniemy. I don't know. Bieniemy. I'm reading the comments here.
Yeah, no,
Bieniemy
exactly.
taking it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bieniemy takes that job because he can't. Like, he's got one more shot. I don't think he's going to do it on a team where he's probably not set up for success. Like, wherever he lands, he has to do well.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's funny to me that we're talking about one of the 32 most coveted jobs in maybe the world.
Sure.
For whoever wants to, somebody's going to take that job.
Oh, of course.
There's only 32 of them, so
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you even go 0-17. Does it matter?
No,
because you got the job.
You got the job. You can say you did it. You got a decent payday, right? Like,
Yep.
Does anybody even get that job without making at least $8 million a year now?
well, Jets job.
No, just as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, because Kevin O'Connell's only making like 5.5 or 6 in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, but his next contract will be 10.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
we're talking about people that are going to be signing contracts this year.
I think the Jets job would be the only Jets and maybe the Jags would be the ones under 8.
So is I guess Ryan's out.
I don't know if he is out. He interviewed, but maybe they want to bring him back as a GM. I think Rex Ryan gets hired by the Jets in some aspect, whether it's the head coach or the GM. I think he gets hired by them in some aspect.
I think what is taking so long on that front, let me find it real quick, is the amount of people the Jets are interviewing.
Yeah.
Is ridiculous.
Because Vrabel's gone, obviously. You can cross him off the list.
Well, I know. I made this a week ago. But
Flores and McCown you couldn't interview until this week because of their game. So now those two can be added to the list. Slowick you can't interview until next week now.
Well, no, and obviously Mike McCarthy is going to probably be added to this list. But what my point is this is such a long list. It would take you so long to go through all these interviews anyway that, I mean, the fact that he went in 2 days ago for his interview but didn't leave with the job doesn't really shock me in any way because they're interviewing 5,000 people for some reason.
Right.
So the fact that he didn't leave with the job doesn't shock me.
The only team that I'm okay, because the Bears have like a super long list like this also. They might even have a longer list than the Jets.
No, it's shorter.
Well, no, because they said the Bears are up to 26 candidates as of today.
Well, yeah, but some of those don't sound like they're actually going to get real interviews.
Yeah. So, like, on this list, too, like, I'm okay with maybe the Bears waiting, because if the Bears ultimately want Ben Johnson, I think the Bears are pretty much, because they interviewed Ben Johnson on Saturday last week, and they said he aced his interview. Like, everything they asked him was kind of the answer that they were hoping he would give. He basically aced his interview, so if he's the one they ultimately want, they can't sign him until after the Super Bowl anyway. So, like, I'm not going to be shocked at all to see the Bears head coach opening be the last one filled.
Can you show a couple of those other lists?
Yeah, of course.
I'm looking for a specific name that I saw on the one, but
so we got which guy are you looking for?
I actually on the one that was from the Jets, there was a name that stood out to me that I think would be an amazing head coach, but it would be way too early, and it would be something that the Eagles would do, but not the Jets. Josh McCown.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I think he'll be a great head coach.
I do too, especially when you look at what he did with Darnold this year.
Absolutely.
And thinking about like just how he played in the playoff game, that when Seattle came and Clowney gave us the cheap hit to get Wentz out of the game, and the way he played that game, and that he was playing with like I think a torn bicep or something, and still was like, upset that he couldn't lead us to victory over that because that was a winnable game. Blah blah blah. But
yeah, I'm not going to be shocked if the Bears' job is the last one that gets filled, because if they ultimately want Ben Johnson, depending on how far the Lions go, you have to wait basically until the Super Bowl's over before you can sign Ben Johnson.
No, of course.
So
And this right here, this is the worst kept secret ever. You have two Rooney Rule guys that had no real shot. You had Ben Johnson they were going to take a flyer on.
He never got the interview because Vrabel interviewed, and then they said, okay.
No, exactly. And that's why they did the 2 Rooney Rule requirements like immediately and picked guys that weren't currently coaching, right? So they're just like, oh yeah, we'll talk to these guys real quick, filled our responsibility, and Vrabel's our guy. It's just like, this is the most unserious list outside of the Bears, which is unserious in a different way because these were the ones that I put on there that are real candidates. Obviously, they have a bunch of guys listed that have no real shot to get that job.
Yeah.
Because you're right. They had like 20 guys listed, but they're not actually going to interview all those guys.
Cliff Kingsbury's been added to that list. He's getting an interview tomorrow. Mike McCarthy's been added to that list. He's getting an interview tomorrow.
I don't even think that Kafka is a real candidate. It just happens that 4 of the openings are interviewing the guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you could be excited about a guy that has one of the worst offenses in the league.
Right. And then Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame is actually added to the Bears list too. He interviews on Thursday.
Yeah, I know the Bears added a few different college guys over the last few days. But again, I don't think a lot of those are going to be real.
Oh, can you go to the Saints one quick?
Yeah.
I think Kellen Moore or Joe Brady would be a good fit in New Orleans.
Well, honestly, Mike McCarthy is going to be on that list as well.
Yeah, I think McCarthy would be a good fit in New Orleans also.
I think there's a real chance McCarthy ends up in the Saints.
Yeah. Especially, then he wouldn't have Devontae Adams anymore. Oh, darn. He could have had a nice little reunion, bring Aaron Rodgers to New Orleans and have a good old family reunion.
That's right. But that brings us to the top of the hour. If you've been watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Watching on Roku TV, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we are going to get out of here. We will see you tomorrow, everybody.
Later, guys.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports.